Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'd like to continue with our final chapter of Book 1. طبعا Book 1 explains the major issues of the novel as far as it's entitled Sewing, and it gives us many ideas about the structure, about the framework, about the themes, the characters. Almost everything is presented in Book 1. In Book 2, we are going to somehow reap the results of Book 1. What we saw in Book 1 is going to give some results, whether negative or positive results in Book 2 and Book 3. If you notice this sentence, the three previous chapters, the three final chapters of Book 1, the great manufacturer, when we talked about the Grand Grind and how he wanted to explain to Louisa that she is being proposed to by Bounderby, and he is asking her for permission, and these ideas that we dealt with in the manufacturer. It also showed that Tom is now an adult and he works with Bounderby. Sissy's education has stopped because she is not adopting the new philosophy. فإذا تنتبهون إنه Bounderby has employed Tom, so Tom started to have a flourishing future according to him. We don't know what's going to happen later. And Sissy's education has stopped because she is not acclimatizing in her situation with the fact system, which means something towards Sissy, that she is a grown-up, she is clever, according to the writer's philosophy, of course, according to Dickens, and this life of facts does not suit her. ما توالمها هذه الحياة من الفacts. And Louisa is asked for marriage by Bounderby. So every young character has gone through a kind of a new life, a new way of living. That was proposed in chapter 14, The Great Manufacturer. The next chapter 15 has explained the details towards the marriage of Louisa, and her father explained to her that Bounderby is going to marry her and these ideas. So she is told about Bounderby's plan, some ideas about Sparsit, how Louisa reacted to the marriage proposal, how she started interrogating her father, asking him about love and about passion and affection, and Sissy's reaction towards Louisa's acceptance of the proposal of the marriage. She was shocked. That was made clear in the final paragraph of chapter 15. So now we go to chapter 16. Chapter 16 represents the climax of Book 1, because now what has Bounderby been planning for since chapter 3 now has been made true. He used to hint at his love, his attraction, his kind of whenever Louisa gets close, we understand that he loves her. He likes her. Actually, there is no love, but in terms of likeness and so. So, husband and wife. Husband means Bounderby, and the wife represents Louisa. This chapter, I concluded these few remarks here at the end, so we could discuss them while we go through the chapter. So the three chapters of sowing of seeds is complete. Now everything is done. البذرات انزرعت. For Tom, his seeds are sown, and now we are going to witness how his seeds are going to bloom in his life with Bounderby. Louisa as a wife with Bounderby, and Sissy's seeds failed because she stopped her education. Bounderby in this chapter tells Sparsit about his plan to marry Louisa and the marriage story, how she reacted, and her next move. She is going to move to some different place, and the wedding takes place in chapter 16, and Bounderby had a speech to deliver at the end of the chapter. these are the main points that chapter 15 offers. So I highlighted some important notes by which we can indicate this importance. You see, Bounderby here says, if she takes it in the fainting way, I'll have the skin off her nose at all events. But in spite of being thus forearmed, he entered his own house with anything but a courageous air, and appeared before the object of his misgivings, like a dog who was conscious of coming direct from the pantry. Good evening, Mr. Bounderby. Here, Bounderby is planning to tell Sparsit about his marriage proposal. He drew up his chair, and Mrs. Sparsit drew back hers, as who should say, "Your fireside, sir, I freely admit it." "Thank you, sir," said Mrs. Sparsit, and returned, though short of her. So these are kind of compliments normally take place between Bounderby and Sparsit, and we both know that Sparsit does not like Bounderby. Somehow she hates him, but he likes keeping her in order to indicate that he is kind of a high status person, because he keeps this woman. Here he says, "I have no occasion to say to you that you are not only a lady born and bred." See how many times he highlighted this issue. Lady born and bred. يعني الدم مالتها and when she was brought up. This idea highlights, underscores, or enforces the kind of differences that are available between the social classes that Dickens tries to eliminate, tries to correct in his novel. "But a devilish sensible woman, a woman of sense." Returned the lady, "This is indeed not the first time that you have honored me with similar expressions of your good opinion." Of course, we know that he said this so many times since the beginning of the novel. "Sparsit, ma'am," said Bounder, "I am going to astonish you. I am going, ma'am, to marry Tom Gradgrind's daughter." "Yes, sir," returned Sparsit. "I hope you may be happy." "Oh, indeed, I hope you may be happy, sir." And she said it with such great condescension, as well as with such great compassion for him, that Bounderby far more disconcerted than if she had to throw her workbox at them, etc. This is how she reacted in front of him. "I wish with all my heart," said Sparsit in a highly superior manner, somehow she seemed, "that you may be in all respects very happy." "Well, ma'am," he says, "I am obliged to you. I hope I shall be. Don't you, sir?" With a great affability. "But naturally you do. Of course you do." A very awkward pause on Mr. Bounderby's part. "Well," returned he, "under these circumstances I imagine it would not be agreeable to a character like yours to remain here, though you would be very welcome here." "Oh dear, no, sir." This paves the way to Sparsit's move from Bounderby's house to an apartment up in the bank, at the top of the bank. There is an apartment that she will live in. There, however, ma'am, Mr. Bound, there are apartments at the bank where a born and bred lady, a keeper of the place, would be rather a catch than otherwise, and if the same terms. So he offers her another place. Now we are trying to pave the way for Louisa to enter the house of Bounderby. So the marriage was appointed to be solemnized in 8 weeks, بعد 8 أسابيع, and Mr. Bounderby went every evening to Stone Lodge as unaccepted wooer. Wooer يعني a kind of الخطيب يعني الفيونسé. Love was made on these occasions in the form of bracelets and all, and later. So the day came, all these days come to people who will only stick to reason. and the day of the marriage they were married in the church of the floored wooden legs. A marriage between Louisa and Bounderby. هذا هو الحدث الأهم اللي ممكن يصير في chapter 15, that Louisa and Bounderby got married. After breakfast, the bridegroom addressed the audience اللي كانوا معزومين in the following terms: ladies and gentlemen. هذا الشيء طبعا we need to highlight in reading. I am Jose Bounderby of Cooktown. Since you have done my wife and myself the honor of drinking our healths and happiness, I suppose I must acknowledge the same, though as you all know, and what I am and what my extraction was. You won't expect a speech from a man who, when he sees a post, says that's a post, and when he sees a pump, says that's a pump. Yani that a man of facts, and is not to be got to call a post a pump or a pump a post. This means that just like Gradgrind, 2 and 2 are 4. If you want a speech this morning, my friend and father-in-law, Tom Gradgrind is a member of parliament, and you know where to get it. I am not your man. If I feel a little independent when I look around this table today and reflect how little I thought of marrying Tom Gradgrind's daughter. What is important comes here when he declares that I believe I am worthy of her. يعني أنا أستاهلها يقول. So I thank you, both our parts, for the goodwill you have shown towards us. I hope every bachelor may find as good a wife as I have found, and I hope every spinster may find as good a husband as my wife has found. So شوفون هنا how proud, how arrogant he is when he speaks in this way. As usual, being boastful, متفاخر of what he has and what he got. All Bounderby is quite ready, said Tom. Time's up. Goodbye. I shall be on the lookout for you when you come back. I say, my dear Lou, ain't it uncommonly jolly now? This is Tom's reaction towards the marriage, which seems that he is very happy. These main points are highlighted in chapter 15. And then a significance of chapter 15 lies in Bounderby's getting married from Louisa, Sposset's receiving the marriage news and her move to the apartment at the bank, and Bounderby's speech of how he is distinctive, how he is important, and how his wife deserves him in his speech at the end of the chapter, and how Tom reacted towards the marriage. Ain't it uncommonly jolly now? This is what he said. So he seems very happy in this marriage. So these are the main points that we can find in chapter